Have you ever walked away from a conversation and carried someone else's words in your chest for hours? A glance that made you feel small, a comment that sounded like a joke but cut you where it hurt the most, a silent rejection that left you questioning your worth. You smiled, you moved on, but deep down it stayed. It replayed in your mind while you were doing the dishes. It echoed when you tried to fall asleep. It drained your joy from moments that had nothing to do with them. Why does this happen? Why do people get to disturb our peace so easily while we're the ones left holding the weight? You're not weak. You're human. And the truth is, most of us were never taught how to protect our inner world from the chaos outside. But what if you could walk through life, no longer triggered, no longer thrown off course, calm and unshakable, even when life doesn't play fair? In the next few minutes, I want to guide you back to a place within yourself you may have forgotten, a stillness that no one can take from you, unless you hand it over. And today we take it back. Let's begin. The first shift. No one can pull you into fire unless you step in. Someone says something rude. It lands like a match on dry wood. Before you know it, the heat of anger rushes up your chest. Your heart pounds. Your thoughts spiral. You rehearse what you should have said, again and again. That one sentence, that one glare, now owns your whole day. But pause for a moment. Whose flame is it? Theirs, or the one you agreed to tend? There is a story from the Buddha's time. A man insulted him harshly, repeatedly, hoping to provoke a reaction. The Buddha simply smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" It's such a quiet, simple truth. Words may be thrown your way, but whether they enter and burn you, it is always your choice. We forget this because our nervous system has been trained for war. From childhood, many of us learn that love comes with tension, that safety means control, that being right is survival. And so when someone says something unpleasant, the mind reacts before the soul has time to speak. But we are not our reactions. We are the awareness behind them. Let me take you into a moment from my own life. It was years ago. I had worked hard on a project, weeks of quiet dedication, lost sleep, and real heart. In one meeting, someone dismissed it casually. "I don't think this adds any value," they said with a shrug. I felt my chest tighten, my jaw clenched. I remember snapping back, not harshly, but enough to feel a tremble of regret afterward. The rest of that day was lost, not to them, but to my storm. They didn't ruin my peace. I did. I gave it away for free. That's the first truth I want you to remember. You are not a puppet of other people's behavior. Their words, their moods, their opinions, these are sparks, but they cannot burn unless you pour oil on them. Between stimulus and response, there is a sacred space, a breath. And inside that breath is your power. So the question becomes, how do you widen that space? How do you make it big enough for peace to walk through instead of pain? Here's a gentle tool I've learned through practice, not perfection. 1. Pause. When you feel triggered, don't speak yet. Even if your body screams to react, don't. Silence is a form of protection. It softens the waves. 2. Label the emotion. Say it in your mind. I'm feeling hurt. I'm embarrassed. That felt like rejection. Naming emotions makes them less chaotic. It turns heat into clarity. Third, step back from the story. Don't ask, why are they like this? Ask, why does this hurt me here? Often it touches an old wound that isn't about this moment at all. 4. Ask the sacred question, is this worth my energy? Am I trading my peace for a reaction I won't even remember next year? Most of the time, the answer is no. But the emotion just wants to be seen, not obeyed. In Buddhist philosophy, the mind is often compared to water. When the water is stirred, it becomes muddy. You can't see through it. But when you let it settle, clarity returns on its own. The world we live in today stirs us constantly. News, notifications, other people's pain. We absorb it all like sponges, forgetting that not everything deserves a reaction, and not everyone deserves access to our nervous system. Now let's softly bring in something powerful. Have you noticed that when you expect people to be difficult, they often are? When you walk into a conversation already braced for attack, your energy meets theirs with resistance. And what happens? Friction, defense, misunderstanding. But when you walk in grounded, expecting nothing, needing nothing, others often shift without you saying a word. That's not magic, that's resonance. You teach others how to treat you by the energy you carry. It's not about control, it's about coherence. When your inner state is still, calm, and self-respecting, the outer world has a harder time pulling you out of balance. Here's something gentle but strong to repeat whenever someone presses on your nerves. I choose peace, not because you deserve it, but because I do. Let this be your mantra when the fire rises. There is one more truth you need to know. You may learn to pause, you may master the art of silence, but there will still be people who trigger you, not because you're failing, but because those people are mirrors reflecting the parts of you that still seek healing. And so we ask ourselves, why do certain people get under our skin, even when we try so hard to stay calm? That's not a flaw, it's a deeper invitation. That brings us to the next shift, the one that will forever change how you see difficult people. Let's go deeper. The next shift reveals why your most triggering relationships are your greatest teachers. The second shift, stop expecting lions to purr. I wouldn't have treated them like that. I would have shown up. I would have answered the call. So why didn't they? That ache, one that comes from being let down, misunderstood, dismissed, it cuts deeper when it comes from someone we cared for. Someone we held space for. And in that moment, the pain doesn't just come from what they did. It comes from the expectation that they do what you would have done. This is one of the hidden roots of emotional suffering, expecting others to mirror your heart. But people are not you. They don't love like you do. They don't think like you do. And expecting them to behave according to your values is like standing under a cloudless sky and begging it to rain just because you're thirsty. We want people to be kind because we are kind. We want them to show up, say sorry, follow through, because that's what we would do. And when they don't, we feel betrayed. But what we're mourning is an illusion. Here's a story that helped me see this differently. Years ago, I had a close friend. We shared so much: meals, late-night talks, dreams. When a crisis hit in my life, I expected, without question, that they'd be there. They weren't. At first, I was stunned, then hurt, then angry. I thought, I would never have left you like this. But in the stillness of one long night, I realized I wasn't grieving the friend. I was grieving the version of them I had created in my mind. They were never that version. I just wanted them to be. We do this all the time, projecting our ideals onto people, seeing not who they are, but who we hope they'll become. And when reality shows up in its raw form, we feel betrayed. Not because they changed, but because they never matched the story we told ourselves. Here's where that Zen wisdom quietly whispers. Suffering arises not from what is, but from the mind's argument with what is. You wouldn't stand on a mountain and get angry at the wind for being cold. You wouldn't yell at a lion for refusing to purr. So why do we argue with people who are simply being who they've always been? This doesn't mean we stop wanting love or that we never feel disappointment. It means we begin to anchor our peace in truth, not illusion. And the truth is simple, even when it's hard. People act from where they are, not from where you wish they'd be. Here's something gentle to consider. The more we cling to the fantasy of how things should be, the more life brings us reminders of how they are. It's like being handed the same lesson over and over again, not to punish us, but to wake us up. When you release your grip on what should have happened, your energy becomes lighter, freer, and that freedom creates space. And in that space, better relationships flow in. Ones that meet you as you are, not who you pretend to be, to keep people close. Now let's go deeper. When we expect someone to change, we're not loving them. We're loving their potential. But potential isn't real. What's real is how they show up now. And radical acceptance is seeing that clearly without resentment. Acceptance is not approval. It's not saying, this is okay. It's saying, this is. And from that place, you choose what to do next. Whether it's to stay, to leave, to speak, or to go silent. But you choose from awareness, not attachment. Here's a simple mantra I return to often when my heart gets entangled. They are allowed to be who they are, and I am allowed to choose peace over proving anything. Let me give you a practice that might help in those moments when someone disappoints you. Breathe before the story begins, before the mind spins into, I would never have done that. Pause, notice the emotion, name it. Let it rise without chasing it. 2, see the person, not who they were once, not who you wish they were. Who are they now? How do they show up when it's hard? What patterns repeat? 3, release the illusion. Let go of the version of them you built in your mind. Say it softly if needed. That version was mine, not theirs. 4, reclaim your energy. Ask, what's worth more? My peace or my fantasy of who this person could be? You'll find that when you stop expecting lions to purr, you also stop placing yourself in cages where your peace depends on someone else's behavior. And here's the subtle magic that begins to unfold. When you no longer grip people with expectation, something shifts. You begin to attract different dynamics. Conversations become lighter. Your nervous system begins to relax. You stop trying to fix people and start trusting that the right ones won't need fixing. You become someone safe to yourself. Now, some may say, but if I accept people as they are, won't I just keep getting hurt? You won't, because real acceptance comes with clear seeing, and clear seeing comes with better choices. You stop hoping for rain from a cloudless sky. You learn to carry your own water, and that is where true power lives. So the next time someone lets you down, remember this. You're not upset because they failed you. You're upset because you expected them to be someone they're not. Let that truth set you free. But even with this clarity, some people still drain us, even from a distance. What then? That's where the third shift begins. Learning how to protect your energy from what others project. The third shift, their words don't belong in your body. Someone once told me I was selfish. It was a passing comment, said with frustration. I laughed it off on the outside. But inside, something cracked, because a part of me already feared it might be true. And so I believed them, not just for that day or that week, but for years. You see, words only wound deeply when they land where we're already bruised. If someone calls you something you know you're not, you shrug. But if they strike near a quiet insecurity, it's like pressing into an old scar. You flinch, you absorb, you carry it. We don't just hear words, we house them. We take them in, let them echo, Let them root themselves in places they were never meant to live. But here's the truth I wish I had learned sooner. Just because someone throws something at you doesn't mean you have to catch it. There's a Buddhist parable that speaks to this with quiet brilliance. One day, a man insulted the Buddha, speaking harshly, trying to provoke a reaction. But the Buddha, calm and unmoved, replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you decline to accept it, to whom does it belong?" The man was silent, because the answer was clear: it still belongs to the giver. And so it is with harsh words, judgment, or criticism. You don't have to accept them. You don't have to carry them. They are not yours. But most of us were never taught this. We were taught to listen, to please, to take feedback seriously, even when it's cruel or careless. We internalize strangers' projections, parents' unhealed wounds, teachers' impatience, ex-lovers' resentments, as if they were truths carved into our identity. But they're not. They're just echoes of someone else's mind. And the more you absorb them, the more you smudge the mirror of your knowing. The mind in its natural state is like a clear, polished mirror. But every time you cling to someone's opinion, especially the sharp ones, you stain that mirror. You stop seeing yourself. You see only what they handed you. Let's pause here for a moment. Let's look inward. Think of a word or phrase that someone once said to you that still stings. Maybe they called you too sensitive, or not enough, or hard to love. Notice where that lives in your body, your chest, your throat, behind your eyes. Now ask this: is this mine, or did I absorb it without checking? That moment, the moment of noticing, is where healing begins, because your body remembers more than your mind lets on. Words can imprint in the brain in ways almost identical to physical pain. That's why a harsh comment from years ago can still burn when you recall it. Your nervous system remembers. But here's the good news. Just as the body can heal a cut, the heart can heal from unkind words. And the medicine is self-compassion. When you speak a new truth to yourself, again and again, the pain doesn't vanish overnight, but the message changes, and that message becomes your inner compass. Try whispering this the next time a word tries to crawl under your skin. I am not what they said. I am what I know myself to be. Feel the weight of that. Not as a performance, not as forced positivity, but as a quiet return to center. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to remember who you are underneath their projections. Let me share a real moment. A few years back, I received a harsh comment online. One of those cutting sentences that digs at your character, your value, your very presence. For a moment, I felt that old reaction rise, that old desire to justify, to defend, to prove my worth. But I stopped. I placed a hand over my heart, and I said softly, "They're speaking from their storm. I choose not to walk into it." And just like that, I stepped out of the fire. Here's a gentle practice you can try. 1. When a word sticks, pause. Before you let it spread inside, pause. Take one breath, then another. 2. Ask yourself, is this mine? Was this spoken with love, with clarity? Is there truth I can grow from, or just pain I don't need to hold? 3. Speak your truth back, out loud or silently. I know who I am. I release what is not mine. 4. Let the moment pass through. Picture their words like smoke. You see it, you feel it briefly, but you don't inhale. You let it drift away. This is not about becoming immune to feedback. It's about becoming wise about what you allow into your sacred space. Because when you carry every opinion like it's scripture, you forget that your soul already knows the way, and you begin to move through life shaped by noise instead of stillness. But something beautiful happens when you begin filtering what enters your body, your mind, and your heart. You become lighter, stronger, quieter, but more powerful. You stop defending your worth because you remember it was never up for debate, and in that remembering, you free yourself from the chaos of other people's storms. Now that you've stopped letting their words live in your body, it's time to protect your space in a new way, with one quiet but powerful practice: saying no. The fourth shift: boundaries are an act of love for yourself. There's a quiet kind of pain no one talks about, the kind where you say yes with a smile, while something inside you whispers no, where you stretch yourself to be helpful, kind, available, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of what might happen if you say otherwise. The fear of disappointing, the fear of being seen as selfish, the fear of conflict. And so, you become the reliable one, the peacekeeper, the fixer, the listener, the one who always answers the phone. Until one day, you crash, not loudly, not with drama, but quietly, like a bowl that's been overfilled too many times. Its cracks invisible until it finally shatters. I remember such a day. I had said yes to helping a friend with something I didn't have time or energy for. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't respectful of my schedule. But I agreed anyway, out of guilt, out of habit. That evening, as I sat at my desk, exhausted and behind on my work, I felt a wave of resentment, but it wasn't toward them. It was toward myself, for abandoning my boundary before they even had a chance to cross it. You see, most people don't invade our peace intentionally. They simply walk through open doors that we never closed. There's a Zen teaching that says, a bowl can only give if it is not cracked. If your energy is leaking from people-pleasing, overextending, or fear-based yeses, you cannot give from fullness. And without fullness, even kindness turns into resentment. This is where boundaries enter, not as walls, but as gardens. Boundaries are not punishments. They are invitations to protect what is sacred. They are not rejections. They are clear, and at their deepest level, they are a form of self-love. Yet for so many of us, boundaries feel heavy. We associate them with guilt. We fear that saying no makes us cold, distant, or unkind. But here's a gentle truth. Saying no to what drains you is saying yes to what sustains you. Let's reframe it. Imagine your energy as a sacred space, like a temple. Not everyone is meant to walk in freely. Not every request is meant to be answered. When you allow others to constantly enter without pause, you're not being generous. You're abandoning the very space that makes you you. And this abandonment doesn't come without consequences. It shows up in subtle ways: irritability, fatigue, resentment, burnout. You begin to feel like you're losing yourself, because you are. But it's not too late to return. Start small. Start with simple language that honors both your truth and your compassion. Here are some gentle phrases you can use. I care about you and I want to be there, but I need space right now to recharge. That doesn't work for me, but I appreciate you asking. I'm not available for that. Thank you for understanding. I need some time for myself. Let's reconnect another day. These aren't barriers. They're bridges to more honest relationships, because the right people won't be threatened by your no. They'll be inspired by your self-respect. And something beautiful begins to happen when you live from this space. You stop attracting chaos. You stop calling in people who feed off your compliance. You begin resonating with those who honor your time, your boundaries, your peace, because you do. That's the quiet magnetism of self-honoring. Without ever needing to explain yourself, justify, or over-apologize, you begin to shift the entire energy field around you. People feel it, they adjust to it, or they exit, and that too is a gift. Now here's a deeper layer. Sometimes we do say no. We finally drew the line. We hold our ground. But afterward, the emotions still rise. Guilt, fear, second-guessing. And that's because boundaries don't just happen externally. They must be reinforced internally through kindness, self-validation, and a strong inner voice that reminds you, I'm not being difficult, I'm being clear. Let me ask you something gently. Where in your life are you saying yes just to avoid discomfort? Where are you agreeing not because it feels right, but because it feels safer? These are the places calling for your love, not the soft, self-sacrificing kind, but the courageous, clear-eyed kind that says, I matter too. My energy is not a landfill for other people's chaos. My peace is sacred. This is not selfishness. This is soul stewardship. You are allowed to protect your mornings. You are allowed to turn off your phone. You are allowed not to reply right away. You are allowed to say, this is my healing. And in that protection, something quiet blooms. A strength that doesn't roar, but holds. A clarity that doesn't explain, but stands. A love that doesn't bend, but flows like water around what it cannot carry. Because every time you protect your space, you send a message to the universe. I am ready to be met with the same care I give to myself. And that's when new people come. New peace enters. Not because you chased it, but because you became it. But even when you protect your time, your energy, your space, sometimes emotions still rise unexpectedly. A sharp comment, a broken promise, a moment of deep pain. And in that moment, the greatest healing isn't found in reaction. It's found in a practice far more powerful. Silence. The fifth shift, let it rise, then let it float away. There's an old Zen parable I often return to when my mind clings to pain. Two monks were walking in silence when they came upon a woman unable to cross a river. Without hesitation, the elder monk lifted her and carried her across. Hours later, after more quiet walking, the younger monk burst out, "How could you carry that woman?" "We're not supposed to touch women," the elder monk replied gently. "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" How many times in our lives do we carry someone long after they've left? Their words, their actions, the memory of what they did or didn't do. We carry them in our minds, in our bodies, in our breath, and we call it normal. But here's a truth that's both simple and radical. Just because something rises doesn't mean you have to hold it. There was a moment in my life when I learned this the hard way. Someone I trusted deeply broke that trust. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to leave a scar. And for weeks, maybe months, I replayed it in my mind. What I should have said. What I would say if I had the chance again. Each day I carried it like a stone in my chest. Until one morning I stood by a lake, still, silent. And I said out loud, not to anyone, just to the sky, "I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I need to breathe again." Forgiveness wasn't a favor to them. It was a homecoming to myself. This is the quiet art of letting go. And it begins not with denial, but with allowance. Let the emotion rise. Let the anger bubble up. Let the sadness visit. Feel the heat in your face, the tension in your chest. Don't run from it. Don't judge it. Just whisper to yourself, this too is part of being alive. Then name it, gently. This is anger. This is hurt. This is fear. And then step back. Watch it move through you. Not as a master, but as a guest. No emotion can stay forever unless we invite it in, sit it down, and start feeding it. Let it rise. Then let it float away, like clouds drifting through an open sky. You are not the storm. You are the space it moves through. The beauty of this practice isn't just emotional, it's physical. When we hold resentment, tension builds in the body. Our breath shortens, shoulders tighten, jaw clenches. Over time, we don't just feel pain emotionally, we store it. But when we release, not by forcing, but by softening, the body begins to unwind. The breath deepens, the shoulders drop, and something opens inside. Space to heal, to return to the present, to reclaim the energy that's been tied up in someone else's story. One of the most freeing affirmations I use in these moments is this: this moment is mine to cleanse. I choose peace, even if they never apologize. Because peace is never something they give, it's something you claim. Even if the past never gets resolved, even if they never understand your pain, even if you never get closure, you can still choose to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. It's not about forgetting, it's about releasing the grip. It's about letting the pain rise, then drift like a feather into the wind. Letting go doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. And when you live like this, not chasing peace, not waiting for justice, not demanding apologies, but becoming peace, you awaken something deeper, a stillness, a freedom, a clarity that no one, no matter how loud, cruel, or chaotic, can take from you. Because you're no longer looking outside to feel whole. You're no longer clinging to what should have been. You've turned inward and found the quiet strength that was always there. There comes a quiet moment in life when you no longer flinch at criticism, when someone disrespects you and your breath stays soft, when chaos moves around you but no longer through you. That is the day you become untouchable, not because you've stopped feeling, but because you stop giving your power away to every emotion that rises. Emotional mastery is not suppression, it is a transformation. It doesn't mean pretending nothing hurts or becoming indifferent. It means you feel deeply and respond wisely. You don't chase every insult. You don't react to every provocation. You simply recognize a space between the trigger and your response. And in that sacred pause, you choose peace. You no longer expect others to mirror your kindness. You've stopped handing over your peace in exchange for their approval. Their words no longer belong in your body, and you've remembered the truth. Your boundaries are not walls to push others away, but doors that guide you back to yourself. And when old pain resurfaces, you no longer hold it like a badge. You let it rise. You let it pass. You let it float away like mist in the morning sun. Living like this is not hiding from the world. It's meeting the world with presence and stillness. True peace is not found by avoiding life, but by walking through it with soft power and an open heart. If this message touched something quiet inside you, share it. Someone out there is still carrying a weight that isn't theirs to hold. And when you're ready to go deeper, I'll meet you again in the next video, in the same calm space, with the same quiet truth. Until then, stay soft, stay steady, and let the world unfold without needing to hold it.